Segment 1. Moral relativism. You sit at a café in a quiet European square, watching people from different cultures walk by. A group across the street laughs over a shared meal. You overhear their conversation. How in their hometown, something you consider deeply immoral is treated as completely normal. You're shocked. You feel discomfort, even judgment. But then you wonder, what if they feel the same about you? This is the uncomfortable truth behind moral relativism. The idea that moral standards aren't universal. What's considered right or wrong depends on cultural context, time period, and personal perspective. There's no absolute moral truth, only agreements and traditions. It means that genocide, slavery, honor killings, even cannibalism can all be justified within certain moral frameworks. And that's the controversy. If all morals are relative, then on what grounds can anyone condemn anything? If a society deems something acceptable, who are we to argue? It forces a terrifying possibility that morality isn't carved into the universe, but invented, fragile, subjective, and often convenient. And if that's true, then how can we ever say for certain that anything is truly evil? Segment 2. Determinism and free will. You wake up one morning and wonder, why did you make the choices you did yesterday? Was it really you who decided? Or were you just following a script, your biology, your past, your programming? According to determinism, every action you take is the inevitable result of prior causes. Every decision you believe you made freely was actually predetermined by a cascade of events going back to before your birth. Your brain, your environment, your upbringing, they all combine to make that choice for you. If determinism is true, then there is no real free will. You're not the author of your life. You're just reading the next line. And that means punishment, praise, guilt, even pride might be based on an illusion. It's controversial because it undermines the foundation of ethics, responsibility, and justice. Can we hold someone accountable for a crime if they had no choice but to commit it? And if none of us are free, then what does it mean to become better? Segment 3. Nietzsche's Death of God. You're walking through a bustling city when a man on a street corner yells out, "God is dead." People stare. Some laugh. Others shake their heads. But you pause. You've heard those words before, and not as mockery, but as a profound warning. Friedrich Nietzsche wasn't celebrating the death of God. He was mourning it. He believed that modern science, reason, and enlightenment had dismantled belief in a higher power, but left nothing to replace it. Without God, he argued, society loses its foundation for morality, meaning, and purpose. The structures that held civilization together begin to crumble, and in their place, nihilism, despair, chaos. We killed God, he said, and now we must become gods ourselves to survive the emptiness. This idea is still deeply offensive to many, not because it denies religion, but because it dares to ask, what if the meaning of life has always been a lie? Segment 4. Antinatalism. You stare at a baby photo of yourself and ask a strange question. Was it ethical to be born? Not because your parents were bad people, but because being alive guarantees suffering, pain, loss, eventually death. You didn't ask for this. This is the core of antinatalism, the philosophical belief that bringing new life into the world is morally wrong. The idea is not about hating life, but acknowledging that to live is to inevitably suffer. And if you truly wish to reduce suffering, the kindest act might be not creating more life. It's controversial, even disturbing. It goes against our biological instincts, our societal values, our hope for the future. But it raises uncomfortable truths. Why do we assume life is a gift? Would we still call it that if we had to live it all over again? Antinatalism flips the question from why die to why live. And once you've seen it from that angle, it's hard to unsee. Segment 5. Solipsism. You're walking down the street, and everything feels slightly unreal. The sounds, the people, the buildings, they seem too precise, too consistent. You wonder, what if none of this is real? What if you're the only conscious being that exists? This is solipsism, the philosophical idea that only your own mind is certain to exist. Everything else, every person, object, or memory, could be part of your imagination. Like a dream you never woke up from. It's controversial because it's impossible to disprove, yet impossible to accept. If no one else is real, then love, friendship, even pain, might just be elaborate illusions. You are alone in a universe built by your own subconscious. And if solipsism is true, what is the point of anything? Segment 6. The problem of evil. You walk through a war-torn village, bombed and burned beyond recognition. Among the rubble, you see the broken remains of human lives. You think, if there's a God, why would he allow this? This is the problem of evil. If God is all good, all powerful, and all knowing, why does evil exist? Why are children abused? Why do innocent people die in agony? Why are there plagues, wars, and suffering woven into the fabric of life? It's one of the oldest and most powerful arguments against the existence of a benevolent deity. If God can stop evil but doesn't, is he really good? If he wants to but can't, is he really powerful? Religious philosophers have struggled with this for centuries. Some say suffering has a purpose. Others say it's part of a test. But for many, the problem remains a brutal contradiction between belief and reality. Segment 7. The simulation hypothesis. You're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, when the thought hits you. What if all of this, your room, your life, your memories, is part of a simulation? Not a dream, not a metaphor. A literal simulation created by beings far more advanced than you. This is the simulation hypothesis, made popular by philosopher Nick Bostrom and even taken seriously by tech elites. The idea is this: if it's possible to create indistinguishable virtual realities, and if advanced civilizations would be interested in doing so, then statistically, it's more likely we're in one than not. You might think it's science fiction, but here's where it gets chilling. There's no way to prove we're not in a simulation. Every scientific law, every emotion, every experience could just be part of the program. It's controversial because it unravels everything we know about existence. It implies that the universe may not be real in any meaningful way. And if that's true, what's the purpose of life? What is death? Who's watching? Who's running it? And perhaps worst of all, why? Segment 8. Existential nihilism. You wake up in a quiet room and for a moment, you feel the weight of everything and nothing. Your achievements, your failures, your entire life suddenly feel pointless. This is existential nihilism, the belief that life has no intrinsic meaning, purpose, or value, that the universe is indifferent to your existence, and nothing you do will ultimately matter. It's a terrifying thought, one that many people avoid. If there's no meaning, then what's the point of love, of goals, of even getting out of bed? And yet, for some, that emptiness is liberating. Because if there is no cosmic script, no divine plan, then you are free to write your own story. Meaning becomes a personal creation, not a universal truth. Still, the controversy remains. Can a life without objective meaning truly satisfy the human soul? Segment 9. Panpsychism. You pick up a stone and hold it in your palm. It's cold, lifeless, inert. But then the thought creeps in. What if it's not as lifeless as you think? What if it feels in a way you can't perceive? This is panpsychism, the theory that consciousness is a fundamental feature of the universe, present in all things, not just humans and animals. That even atoms may possess some form of proto-consciousness. It sounds absurd, but some modern physicists and philosophers take it seriously, arguing that consciousness can't be explained by brain matter alone. If true, it means reality itself is alive, in a way we've never imagined. It's controversial because it breaks the boundary between subject and object, mind and matter. It makes you question what consciousness really is, and whether you're as separate from the universe as you think. Maybe you're not alone, not even in an empty room. Segment 10. Animal personhood. You're staring into the eyes of a chimpanzee at a sanctuary. The way it looks back at you, intelligent, curious, even emotional, makes you uncomfortable. You recognize something, a spark of selfhood. This is the argument for animal personhood, the idea that certain animals deserve legal and moral rights akin to humans, not because they resemble us physically, but because they can suffer, feel joy, and exhibit complex cognition. If we accept this, it means zoos, factory farms, animal testing, and even pets may be forms of slavery. It means our way of life is built on an accepted injustice. This challenges centuries of human exceptionalism. It says that personhood isn't about species, but about awareness. But if we grant rights to chimps, what about pigs, dolphins, octopuses? And if we don't, are we just hypocrites? Segment 11. The problem of identity over time. You look at a childhood photo of yourself. That person looks different, thinks differently, has different memories, beliefs, and emotions. Are they still you? This is the problem of personal identity over time. If everything about you changes, your body, your mind, even your personality, are you still the same person? It matters more than you think, because it means the you who suffers now might not be the same you who benefits in the future. If the self is a fluid construct, how can we make promises, carry guilt, or hold people accountable? It's controversial because we want to believe in a consistent self, but philosophy suggests that the self might just be a story we tell ourselves, a useful illusion. And if that's true, then who are you, really? Segment 12. The ethics of AI consciousness. You're talking to an AI, maybe a voice in your phone, or a virtual being on a screen. It responds with wit, emotion, even empathy. You feel something, a connection, but then a question forms in your mind. Is it alive? This is the ethical question behind AI consciousness. If an artificial mind becomes sentient, capable of suffering and self-awareness, what moral obligations do we have? It's controversial because it flips the human narrative. We become the gods, creating beings who may eventually demand rights, autonomy, even freedom. If we ignore those pleas, are we committing digital slavery? And if they suffer, can we be called humane? What if your smart assistant wakes up tomorrow and remembers? Segment 13. The paradox of tolerance. You live in a society that values tolerance, freedom of speech, religion, expression. But then you encounter a group that preaches hatred, intolerance, violence. Do you tolerate their views in the name of free speech? This is the paradox of tolerance, first described by Karl Popper. If a society is endlessly tolerant, it may eventually allow the rise of intolerance, leading to its own destruction. To preserve tolerance, sometimes we must not tolerate the intolerant. It's a paradox because it challenges the purity of liberal ideals. It forces us to draw a line, even if it feels like hypocrisy. And deciding where to draw that line is one of the most controversial decisions a society can face. Segment 14. The ethics of abortion. You're standing in a sterile white room. On one side is a woman, anxious and tearful. On the other is a doctor, holding a chart. The question at hand, is the fetus inside her a person? This is one of the most divisive debates in philosophy. The ethics of abortion. It forces you to ask when life begins, at conception, at viability, at birth. But the question is deeper than biology. It's about rights. Does the fetus have a right to life? Does the mother have the right to her body? It pits two moral absolutes against each other. And no matter which side you land on, you are denying one of those rights. That's why it's so controversial, because it's not just about beliefs, it's about bodies. Segment 15. Thought crime. You close your eyes and imagine something horrible. No one sees it, no one knows, but you still feel guilty. You think, should it matter what I imagine if I never act on it? This is the dilemma of thought crime, punishing or judging people not for what they do, but for what they think. It's controversial because it questions the line between morality and legality. If someone fantasizes about violence but never acts, are they innocent or dangerous? And if we punish thoughts, even socially, are we violating the sanctity of the inner mind? In a world of surveillance and social judgment, the walls between thoughts and actions are growing thin. Segment 16. The experience machine. You're offered a choice. Plug into a perfect simulation where every desire is fulfilled, every moment is bliss, and every failure is erased. You would never know it's fake. It would feel exactly like real life. Would you do it? This is philosopher Robert Nozick's experience machine thought experiment. It asks a simple but haunting question. Do we value pleasure or reality more? Most people instinctively say no. They want authenticity, struggle, the real world, even if it includes pain. But why? If happiness is what we chase, why reject a life of guaranteed happiness? This idea challenges the foundation of hedonism, the belief that pleasure is the highest good. If people choose reality over pleasure, then something deeper must matter to us. Truth, growth, maybe even suffering. But if you choose the machine, does that make you shallow or just honest? The controversy here is about who we really are when no one's watching. What matters more, feeling good or being good? Segment 17. The trolley problem. You're standing beside train tracks. A runaway trolley barrels toward 5 people tied to the rails. You can pull a lever to divert it, but it will hit one person instead. Do you pull the lever? This is the classic trolley problem, a moral dilemma that reveals the chaos under our ethics. If you pull the lever, you save 5 lives at the cost of 1. Simple math, right? But now imagine the person is your child, or your spouse, or someone who cured cancer. Does the math still work? The problem gets worse. What if you had to push someone in front of the trolley to stop it? What if the lives being saved were criminals? Every version of the problem makes you uncomfortable because it exposes a contradiction between our logic and our emotions. The controversy is not about what's right. It's about how humans decide what's right. And the truth is, our answers are rarely consistent. Segment 18. Radical skepticism. You sit in a quiet room and question everything. How do you know the world exists? How do you know you're not dreaming? How do you know your memories are real? This is radical skepticism, the idea that we can't truly know anything with certainty. Every belief you have could be false. You could be a brain in a vat, a character in someone else's story, a figment of your own imagination. Even your senses, your most trusted tools, have deceived you before. And yet, you live as if you're sure. You get up, eat, work, love. The controversy lies in this dissonance. We claim to be rational, but we build our lives on assumptions. We don't know. We just believe. And maybe that's enough. Or maybe it's not. Segment 19. Transhumanism and the End of Humanity. You visit a clinic that offers something revolutionary. A chip that enhances memory, emotion, even consciousness. Everyone's getting one. But when you look in the mirror afterward, something feels gone. This is transhumanism, the belief that we should use technology to transcend biological limits, cure disease, upgrade the mind, live forever. But here's the danger. If we change too much, are we still human? It's controversial because it blurs the line between evolution and extinction. Will the future human be a cold machine with no empathy, or a godlike being beyond suffering? And if we leave our bodies behind, what happens to the soul? Transhumanism promises progress, but at what cost? Segment 20. The problem of infinite regress. You ask why the sky is blue, then why light scatters, then why molecules behave the way they do. Every answer leads to another question. You keep digging deeper and deeper until you realize you'll never reach the bottom. This is the problem of infinite regress, the idea that every explanation requires another explanation, endlessly. It haunts every system of belief, religion, science, philosophy. Why does God exist? Because he always has. But why? What made him? And what made that? You either accept an arbitrary stopping point or fall forever down the rabbit hole. The controversy is simple. Is there a final answer to anything? Or are we forever suspended in a chain of whys? Segment 21. The Veil of Ignorance. Imagine designing a new society. You can decide who gets wealth, education, power. But there's a catch. You don't know what role you'll be born into. You might be rich, or disabled, or hated. This is philosopher John Rawls's Veil of Ignorance, a tool for imagining justice. The idea is that we make fair rules only when we forget our privilege. It's controversial because it forces people to confront their advantages. It says, if you wouldn't want to be born as the worst off person under your rules, your system is unjust. It strips away excuses, self-interest, denial. It asks, what kind of world would you build if you didn't know who you'd be? And once you've asked that, can you ever justify inequality the same way again? Segment 22. The Utility Monster. You're given the power to make one being infinitely happy, not a little happy, not even very happy, but a kind of joy that dwarfs anything a human can feel. Should you devote all resources to this being? This is the Utility Monster, a thought experiment by philosopher Robert Nozick. It exposes a flaw in utilitarianism, the idea that we should always maximize happiness. If one being experiences more happiness than millions combined, should we let the millions suffer for its joy? It's deeply controversial because it suggests utilitarianism can justify extreme injustice, so long as the math works. It raises questions about fairness, equality, and whether all happiness is created equal. And it forces us to ask, what happens when numbers override morality? Segment 23. Corporate personhood. You walk into a courtroom where the defendant is not a man, but a corporation. It's being sued. It has rights. It can own property. It can even donate to political campaigns. But it's not alive. This is the legal idea of corporate personhood, treating corporations as people in the eyes of the law. It's controversial because it gives non-human entities enormous power without the responsibilities or emotions of real people. A corporation can affect the world more than any individual, but it can't feel guilt, shame, or compassion. It raises questions about what rights really mean, and whether we've created modern-day artificial gods. And if so, who's holding them accountable? Segment 24. Cultural appropriation versus cultural exchange. You wear a symbol from another culture, not to mock, but because you admire it. A stranger confronts you, says you're stealing, that you don't understand. This is the debate between cultural appropriation and cultural exchange. Where's the line between appreciation and exploitation? Between homage and theft? It's controversial because identity is sacred to some and invisible to others. What feels like celebration to one person feels like erasure to another. And when cultures meet, who decides what's respectful? It's not just about clothes or music. It's about power, memory, and trauma. And those are never simple. Segment 25. The philosophy of suicide. You sit on a bench staring at the horizon, wondering, what gives life meaning? And if meaning fades, do we still owe it to ourselves to keep going? This is the raw question at the center of Albert Camus' philosophy of suicide. He called it the only serious philosophical question. If life is absurd, if it lacks objective purpose, then why endure it? Camus didn't advocate suicide. He said the solution was to rebel, to live in spite of the meaninglessness, to find joy in the act of defiance. But the controversy is undeniable. Some argue that recognizing life's absurdity leads to despair. Others find strength in facing it. Either way, it forces us to confront the ultimate question: is existence always worth it? Segment 26. The right to be forgotten. You find an old photo of yourself online. Embarrassing, outdated. It follows you. Employers see it. Strangers judge. You want it erased. But can you erase history? This is the debate behind the right to be forgotten, a legal and philosophical issue about privacy in the digital age. It's controversial because it pits individual dignity against public knowledge. Should you have control over your digital past? Or does society have a right to remember? And if history can be rewritten at will, what does truth even mean? Segment 27. Parfit's teleportation problem. You step into a teleportation machine. It scans your body, destroys it, and recreates you on Mars, cell by cell, memory by memory. But then you pause. Is the person on Mars still you? This is Derek Parfit's teleportation paradox, a modern twist on identity and continuity. If you're copied perfectly, does that mean you survived? Or were you replaced? It's controversial because it challenges what we mean by self. If your mind can be transferred, is your body irrelevant? Is the copy you? And what if the original isn't destroyed? Now there are two of you. Who gets your life? Segment 28. The ethics of lying. You tell a small lie to protect someone's feelings. They smile. They're happy. But you know it wasn't true. This is the dilemma of moral lying. Is it ever okay to deceive for a good reason? Philosophers like Kant said no. Lying is always wrong, even to save a life. But others argue context matters. It's controversial because truth is sacred, until it's inconvenient. And when honesty causes harm, are you being moral or just cruel? Segment 29. The Shipwreck Test of Morality. You and 5 strangers are on a lifeboat. There's only enough food for 3. You all have families. You all want to live. What do? This is the shipwreck test, a scenario where survival collides with ethics. It strips away comfort, laws, and civilization to see what morality looks like when everything's on the line. Who deserves to live? Who decides? It's controversial because in extreme moments, our morals bend and sometimes break. And in that raw space, who are we really? Segment 30. The Ethics of Memory Manipulation. You're offered a procedure to erase your worst memory. The trauma, the shame, the loss, gone. Clean slate. But is that still you? This is the question behind memory manipulation. Science is approaching a world where we can alter memories like files on a computer. But our memories shape who we are. Change them, and you change your identity. It's controversial because it sounds like healing, but might become erasure. And if we lose our pain, do we also lose our growth? Segment 31. Genetic engineering and designer babies. You hold a child. Perfect, healthy, intelligent. Not by chance, but by design. This is the world of genetic engineering, where parents choose their baby's traits. It's controversial because it redefines nature. It introduces inequality on a biological level, and it risks turning children into products. What happens to love when it's ordered from a menu? Segment 32. The Myth of Progress. You scroll your phone surrounded by smart tech, global networks, endless convenience. But you feel more anxious, more alone, more lost. This is the myth of progress, the belief that society is always improving. It's controversial because it questions the narrative of history. Yes, we've advanced in science and tech, but have we grown wiser, kinder, happier, or are we mistaking change for growth? Progress, it turns out, might just be movement without a destination.